Welcome to Black Republican, Black Democrat. I'm just Jamar.
And I'm A.K. Kamara.
Well, welcome to the show, A.K. Kamara.
How you doing, man?
Well, great. I love that theme song.
It's got them funky, deep bass.
I could pick music. Yeah,
brothers, we got soul.
That's
right?
true enough.
Soul and funk.
That is true enough.
Soul and funk. There's this stereotype that black people always play, like if they're in a band, they always play bass guitar.
Yeah.
That was me. I play bass guitar, man.
You play bass.
Yeah, man.
Well, because you had soul, and most of us that have soul, they do play bass guitar.
You got that funky soul, man.
Right on.
So how you been, man, since last week?
Busy, always busy. Until next Tuesday, until the election. Trying to, working for different candidates, and then trying to combat the yes people that are, have the win at their sales as they go along, and trying to push the ballot amendment to make sure that Minneapolis has no police in it, and give us this cockamamie crap of bringing in specialists, which we all want. We absolutely all think that mental health specialists should be accompanying certain officers on certain calls when it comes to mental health situations, especially, again, being black, we know how bipolarism is prevalent in our community.
Yeah. And
a lot of times if Pookie's at home tripping out, it could be drugs that enhance it, or it could be just having a nervous breakdown of having the stress of, being unemployed and having a black woman put a finger in your face, and that could be pretty, hey, you want to commit suicide when that happens. You want to commit suicide. So if the police get called, you don't want the guy showing up pulling his gun out, and that's because it not only heightens what's going on in the situation, you do want someone that can recognize that, he's having an episode, and there's a different approach that we should take instead of you drawing your gun or you coming in with this combative attitude, because I think too often do we think police are preventers.
Yeah.
Instead of knowing that they react to crime. Obviously with the investigation, there's certain particular people in positions that try to prevent crime, but most police officers aren't preventative; they're active. And so I think that we got our work cut out for us, bro. I'm afraid it may pass.
Yeah, honestly, I've talked with a couple of different folks. I saw an interesting video by a guy that's running for sheriff in Hennepin County in 2022, and he posed this interesting question about, where are some of these higher elected officials and law enforcement officials coming out saying what their position is, and conversations that you and I have had, it's kind of a nervous time, right, of what the actual impact's going to be. So hopefully the vote no people turn out in force. Obviously, there's a mayoral race.
Yep.
And sometimes that can kind of take the eye off the ball for folks that maybe feel that there's not a candidate that really represents their interests. With this big of a field, I think it's hard to say that, but at least show up so you can vote no. Because if you don't vote, you can't
say
mad.
Don't say nothing.
You can't be mad about it.
I always say, shut up. Shut your mouth. If you don't vote, shut your mouth. I don't want to hear you complaining about a damn thing, about your situation, about your community situation, because you didn't vote. Whether it's a yes vote or a no vote, get out and participate. That's what it needs to be about. And I've got a couple of steak dinner bets with a couple of two people. Yeah. They think that the African American vote turnout will be down than versus 16 and 20. I know that it's going to increase. Black and brown kids, new voters are going to turn out because they want to vote yes or no. But you know what kind of warms my heart too? Yeah. We'll get off this, is being at the North debate 2 weeks ago and seeing these new voters, these seniors, and they had their own opinions, and you had some that had the bad experience with officers that probably would be some vote yeses. Yeah. But to hear some of them say no and say why, right? And so when I was at Open Streets last week, I bumped into two ladies that were voting yes, and they were voting for Sheila with an attitude. Mm-hmm. And when they hear a black man say that he's voting no, they look at you, right? I'm like, well, and I show them my scar on my head. I said, I've had encounters with police. I said, but let me ask you a question. I did boots on the ground for 5 years. I was at most crime scenes that the city had. What's the first thing a lot of gangsters say when their homeboy is shot or when they have been shot? And they look at you like, call 911.
Yeah.
They say, call 911.
Yeah.
My pastor told me that the young man that was shot at it's been so many shootings, but one of the bigger shootings that were over north at the gas station. He's got 6-7 bullet holes in him. What did he say?
Right.
Call 911.
Yeah.
So you call if you eliminate if you make a police department smaller that's already shrinking. We're at 536 officers. Pre-George Floyd, we were at the number of the the charter number of 888. We're at 536. All right. Now we say 536, but now the way Inspector Adams broke it down to me tonight, there's 300 patrol officers though. So the rest are investigators and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So in a city of 420,000 plus, I think it's bigger. I always say that, right?
Yeah.
You've got 300 officers. Come on.
Yeah. That's wild, man.
That is scary and
I just
asinine.
hope that common sense, shines through. And,
do I sound like a Republican tonight?
You might be, man. You might be. We definitely want to get some bills paid. Some of you guys might have noticed that I'm wearing this fancy, dancy Black Republican hat, and I made my co-host a special hat.
Oh, now you know I love hats, and you made me one. I got kind of jealous. I seen you modeled it the other day.
I was kind of playing around with some different things that I was thinking about, and I thought that for the purpose of the show, because we always are wearing our favorite sports hats. They're not paying us.
Me ever.
They're not paying us, but at the end of the day, it's cool to kind of rep some of our stuff. So I got my Black Republican hat. He's got his Black Democrat.
I love it.
So this is what I want to throw out there. Visit our link tree, which is linktr.ee/BRBD, linktree/BRBD. And there you can connect with our Instagram, our Patreon account. You can connect with our YouTube account because right now we're streaming on both YouTube and Facebook. Make sure that if you see fit and you want to grab one of these cool hats, become a subscriber. Once we hit 25 subscribers, those first 25 will be able to put in an order for a Black Republican, Black Democrat hat, and we're going to have some different designs. So please support the show. We can make great content. Also, if you're watching the show, make sure to like this, whether it's on Facebook or YouTube. Make sure that you subscribe on YouTube, you follow us on Facebook, and also share it, because we're going to interact with you guys at the very end of our podcast. We kind of go through comments, things like that. We appreciate that a lot. Also, make sure that you get a chance to kind of check out some of our sponsors, because at the end of the day,
we need them.
This isn't free to produce. If you think it's a good show, if you like the content, the quality that we bring, please visit our sponsors. The first one is Just Imagine. So over in St. Paul, 991 Payne Avenue, we have Just Imagine clothing store. They sell shoes. They got a lot of women's clothing. They got handbags, belts, rolling trays, hats, shoulder bags. They carry.
They got what kind of trays?
Rolling trays.
I've got to go.
Yeah. They got dead stock shoes. They got Yeezys. They got Jordans. They have some of the best urban streetwear clothing for men and women. Some of the brands they have, they got Frost Originals, Maccoby, George V. Paris, NBA Youngboy, $1 Billion Baby Clothing. And you can also head to justimagine651.com. If you aren't able to stop in person and see the owner, David, go to justimagine651.com. And in the referral code section, when you check out, enter BRBD. You get 10% off of your order. Now, after you've freshened up your gear, made sure that you look and fly, when you're thirsty.
You're thirsty, which I always am.
Where you going to head, man?
Because you had that rolling tray. You got to go to the Webermart.
The what?
You got to go to Webermart.
You got to go to the Webermart.
You got to go to Webermart because you got to, in case you need eggs or bread or mailing service.
Right. Money orders, stamps. Right.
All those things. And then good conversation. Kevin, the owner, is great to talk to, and so are the great staff that he employs too. And he loves his community. And in fact, he's got new closing hours. He closes at from 8 in the morning to 7 because of some of the crime that's in the neighborhood. He wants to make sure that his patrons are safe, so he closed the store early so that he keeps it safe around the neighborhood. Yeah, so make sure you check out the Webermart.
Now we got a good show today. We got a great guest.
Oh, we got a great guest
in studio.
Yeah, in studio, in studio, and because that's what we do. We bring on another great guest.
Yeah.
And so we'll have a lot of topics and things for her to talk about. Because I'm like tripping about how what'd you say? How you say his name? Wittenhauer?
Kyle Rittenhouse.
That guy, the murderer. How the judge Monday came down with a ruling that the defense or the prosecutors can only refer to the victims as looters and rioters
An arsonist.
and arsonists, excuse me,
Yeah.
but not victims, which is what they were. And they were not looting or rioting or committing arson.
According to who?
The videos that you seen when he took them out.
Again, videos only tell so much. But
According to the-
apparently, the judge disagreed.
In
If
the
you actually
video,
watch the video.
You can see the whole video.
He was pushing a garbage can. Now, what the the prosecution is going to allege is that, he's trying to just block the police services. And that's why the judge said, in your own defense of why you're saying we shouldn't allow this type of verbiage to be used, you're making it sound as though just blocking police services is fine enough. And at the end of the day, I think that this Rittenhouse case is going to be very interesting.
He's getting off.
I thought for sure that there was going to be basically a term you like to use, a public lynching, just because ideologically I think that people don't have an appetite for certain types of things. But I'm glad that the judge is playing it down the middle. He hasn't just given a bunch of things to the Rittenhouse defense. He's been pretty down the line. I think it's going to be an interesting 2 weeks. Things are going to get spicy. There's already people saying that if he gets found, if basically he's acquitted, they're going to basically take off and do Kenosha, or not Kenosha, but what's the name of the city?
Shit, I don't know. That's why I asked you.
I can't remember the name of the city off the top of my head, but it's gonna be that part 2 or whatever. So
I think that it's going to be held to tell the captain if he is acquitted. Which, get ready, because he's going to be acquitted. This tells me now that,
as he should be.
He shouldn't be, because he's a
be.
murderer. He shouldn't have even had the weapon. Yeah. He shouldn't have even had. It was illegal for him to even possess the damn weapon.
No.
Yes, it was.
No.
It actually was.
They're actually fighting that.
Well,
they're fighting.
You can't fight it because it's the law. You can't. He wasn't even supposed to possess the weapon. Okay. He can't even have a drink without having a parent next to him. So how do you possess this gun? And again, we talk about.
I think that charge is going to get dropped.
No, he's going to just get off. That shows how screwed up the system is, especially when it comes to black and male victims, how we are treated in the justice system. Those people are victims. He killed them, and he should be treated like a murderer.
It looks like self-defense to me.
Oh, please.
All the video that I watched, someone fired first, and then he turned around and someone that is chasing him.
Did they fire at him?
It was right by him.
Oh, it was.
As people were chasing him. So we'll have to see what happens. And just like I said during the Chauvin case, I said my personal feelings at the end of the day don't really matter. It depends. I believe our justice system works, and what the jury comes up with, I will stand by whatever the decision is, but I hope he's acquitted, because Kyle Rittenhouse was classic textbook self-defense. He used good muzzle control after the fact. He didn't just go randomly shooting a bunch of people. Every person he took a shot at was a perceived
How many black men do you know that the police would ride by with him?
Well, there was actually just a case.
With some big black man, I think you'd get killed, that some big black man that rides, when there's a brigade of police riding by and he's brandishing his weapon just looking, you think that it wouldn't stop? Yes. And so here's the thing.
Yes.
This is why you know that he'll get off. The prosecutors are obviously going to look for gun owners, right? Mm-hmm. Because gun owners, you guys tend to think, and I am waiting on my license to come, but
you're about to be in this category, my friend.
But I still think differently. Gun owners tend to think that they can use their gun whenever they want to. So that's the problem. And
that's not true. Responsible gun owners use the gun when they feel that their life is an imminent
Go to Texas
danger.
then. Go to Texas.
That's when they use their gun.
Oh, yeah, right.
That's responsible gun owners.
Some of you guys think you're fucking MacGyver when you use that. Yeah.
Maybe Rambo.
Yeah,
I don't think MacGyver used a bunch of guns.
Well, that's true. He used a pen.
He made a pen gun.
That's true. That's true. So you know what? Now that you say that, just speaking of great gets, let's bring in candidate for governor and current Senator Michelle Benson.
Hi.
How are you?
Welcome to the show.
I'm good. Glad to be here.
You got a little taste of how this show goes down, so I hope you still want to stay.
You're all getting along so far. And Jamar's like, let's just throw something in there. We got to fight.
Always. Welcome to the show. Absolutely. Full disclosure, I've known Michelle now for, I don't know, a while now.
It's been a long time.
Been a long time, and I like Michelle. Michelle's always been nice to me. She's a great lady, and I have to commend you on some of the things that you've worked on as a Republican that I supported, and so I know that I have a particular question down here for you that I kind of know the answer to, so I shouldn't have written it down, but that's okay. Let's get it started anyway. Well, I mean, honestly, the same thing I like to ask anyone. Who are you?
I'm Michelle Benson, Republican candidate for governor.
Bless your heart.
Yes. I've served in the Senate since 2011. I chair the Health and Human Services Committee. I grew up in a small town in West Central Minnesota. My husband was in the Navy, and that kind of displaced us from Minnesota, but we came back here to raise our kids. We live in Anoka County now, and it's an honor to live in this country, to live in this state, and in particular, to get to serve. And I'm happy to, go into more bio and so forth, but I think you guys probably want to get to Q&A and some chatter.
I do, damn it. So, okay, you've been in the Senate since 2011, you said.
Yeah.
So, what have you done as senator that you think that's enough that you are running for governor now?
Well, I took on some really challenging, and I would argue some of the most challenging work. Health and Human Services touches the lives of 1 million Minnesotans. It's a big budget. There's a huge risk for waste, fraud, and abuse, which I've kept my eye on. There are a lot of employees there who do really good work, but there are some that need to be held accountable. I've worked on ag policy and energy policy and tax policy and state employment policy. And so I think I've seen enough of our government and taken on really challenging roles that I'm ready to step up to that next level and serve more Minnesotans. But going into it with my experience in the Senate, respecting the people of Minnesota, expecting taxpayer dollars to be spent well, but knowing that there are people that we serve that need to be at the front of the conversation.
Are you a partisan Republican?
Yes, I caucus with the Republicans, and I vote with Republicans, and I'm running as a Republican. But I don't think you need to necessarily put yourself into a bucket in order to serve.
So, if you're elected governor, will you be a partisan Republican still?
Probably.
Okay, so you'll govern a lot from...
I have principles that match up with the Republican Party, and so it's hard for me to say, all of the things I've done for all these years, I'm going to set those aside. I'm running on those principles with my experience, but not all answers are Republican, and frankly, not all answers are Democrat. But if you start from your principles and you seek to listen to people and bring them to your ideas, you're going to find a space between the two of you where the right answer exists.
Now, a lot of Republicans, especially the ones that are running for governor especially, criticize Governor Walz for his handling of COVID and his handling of last year's events with the post-Floyd incidents. So I ask you, what would you have done differently? How would you have handled COVID? And because I've heard you criticize him on that.
Yep.
And how would you have handled last year's situation differently than Governor Walz?
So on COVID, he took a one-size-fits-all Minnesota approach. I think the virus wasn't moving the same in all places of the state. And so letting people live as they normally do as much as possible while keeping our hospitals from being stressed. From the beginning, I watched how our hospitals were being stressed. They needed to be protected because they are absolutely the last stop for people who are in crisis, a health crisis. So protect the hospitals, let people live as freely as they can, because we saw overdoses, we saw severe mental health issues, and that's because people's lives were continually disrupted. So watch the hospitals, but let people live as freely as you can while keeping the hospitals and long-term care facilities protected. And then for our schools, August of 2020, there was enough science to say elementary school students should be back in school and can be back in school safely. And the governor kept schools shut down, let Minneapolis and St. Paul go almost a year without those kids being in person. And the disruption that happened to families with their kids out of school that long. But more importantly, we have a huge opportunity gap in the state of Minnesota, and that got worse.
Stop asking. Look, are you reading my question? Stop it. No. One quick follow-up, because you and I agree there. I was one of those parents that was advocating. I thought kids should have been in school, because I talked to some students that went from A students to C students, B students to F students, and so on and so forth. And they were all colors. They weren't just one specific color. They were both genders and colors. So we agree there. But now, science also told us that those kids did need protecting, that they should be wearing masks, using sanitation and things of that nature. Republicans did so much pushback on that. What was wrong with the governor protecting not only these kids but the communities? Because now, i.e., there was a nightclub in North Minneapolis.
Protecting.
Well, I mean, sometimes you have to. That's why we have seatbelt laws. We're protecting you, right? But when there's a particular bar, come on. When there's a particular bar that had 22 outbreaks that was led back to one of the bars in North Minneapolis. So if I'm the governor, I'm trying to protect the spread from going back into the communities. So what was wrong with the governor saying, okay, we need to protect these kids who can't protect themselves, who probably put things in their mouths or hands everywhere? How is that wrong with what he did?
So ventilation and distancing are the most effective ways to keep a virus from getting concentrated enough to infect someone. So investing in adequate ventilation in our schools, distancing our students from each other, not isolating them in their homes, but distancing them. And when it comes to businesses, the way that they traced those outbreaks were based on people self-reporting, not necessarily because the infection occurred there, but because the person had been there within a 2-week time frame. And so some of that was unfair to the gyms and bars because they weren't the point source of infection. It was an inferred infection. And so there needed to be, when the virus was moving rapidly, there needed to be some public health pullback on facilities. But there was uniform in counties where there were 0 cases and the hospital systems were okay, they were shutting people down. And that's hard for people to accept and understand. A lot of Minnesotans are reasonable in saying, you know what, when our hospitals are getting overwhelmed, when our healthcare workers are getting overwhelmed, we need to do our part. But there were a lot of places where that wasn't the risk that we were facing. And we ended up with excessive overdose deaths over baseline. We ended up with more people attempting suicide. We have very high, still to this day, children who have depression and anxiety.
You blame that on the governor?
I blame that on the lockdown. And
which the governor is the one that ordered the lockdown. So are you blaming the governor for a lot of what happened in the city, the state?
Keeping kids out of school and isolated when they, risk could be mitigated, contributed to mental health impacts on our kids and delays in learning.
Damn, I can't argue. I would like to argue right now.
So
it's okay. We'll keep going until we find something. Okay.
So I've had this theory, and people that follow me on Facebook have probably seen me post about this. As a conservative, as someone that believes that individuals that are empowered are kind of what makes this country work and what makes our system work, is individuals provided with the right amount of information being allowed to take risk. So as a conservative, I viewed that the problem with the governor's approach is that he takes out people being able to take calculated risk. And even though it's to protect people, a lot of folks will make decisions for their family that make sense. So yourself being someone that is ideologically conservative, I believe, when it comes to how you kind of see things from the human health services sector, that people do take risks. People, if armed with good information, make good decisions for themselves and their family. And there are, yes, people that do need that extra assistance. But from your perspective, what kind of things would you change? Let's say that you do get elected and you're able to serve Minnesota. What types of things would you want to change in regards to some of the, virus rules and kind of practices that are put in place? Or is there anything that you have on your agenda that you would want to have happen right away to be able to stop this kind of one-size-fits-all approach that affects everybody so negatively?
Well, I believe by the time I'm governor, COVID, the SARS-CoV-2 virus, will be endemic, not pandemic. So it will be just something we live with, like the flu or like a measles outbreak. And there's already public health law in place. If there's a measles outbreak, there are already steps that can be taken that were in law before COVID, that respect the rights of individuals, that quarantine the people who are sick, not an entire population. So I think we'll be, I don't want to say past COVID because it's going to be with us. We're going to have to learn some lessons from COVID. And that's going to involve things like telehealth. That's going to involve how do we change the way we educate kids to help them catch up? What does our mental health system look like now that it's been under this stress? How do we help our hospitals be resilient? How do we plan for a pandemic going forward?
Right.
And so, yes, we need to think about how we respond to the virus, but we pre-COVID had pretty good public health response in place. And now we just need to learn lessons. We don't need to stay locked down. We don't need emergency powers that go for more than a year. We need a governor who in the next pandemic is going to engage with the legislature. And so we can change emergency powers. We can change the way our government responds to pandemic, but I don't think COVID's going to be the primary problem in 2023.
So kind of following up to that, in regards to having the retrospective, 2020, of seeing how things happen, how things played out, let's kind of put that to the side. Are there kind of some basic things that you want to accomplish? What is it that made you decide that I'm no longer want to, serve just this Senate district? I want to serve the whole state. What kind of principles do you want to try and bring forward in your governorship?
Well, first of all, you need a governor who trusts and respects Minnesotans, who are capable of making their own decisions. A governor who sees the potential in people, but you have to let people be free and work to their greatest ability. That means they need to be safe. If you are not safe in your community, you spend all your time trying to be safe.
Absolutely.
And if you're not educated, if you're held back because the education system doesn't meet your needs or doesn't allow you to grow, you can't live to your full potential. So we need to make sure people are safe, make sure our education system is meeting the needs of the kids, not the needs of a system, and then make this a place where people are free, where it's okay to be prosperous, where if you take a risk, you succeed or fail. And if you fail, you can always come back. And that's the kind of Minnesota I want to see, a place where people are safe, where people are educated. And when you work and you succeed or fail, it's still a place where you feel at home.
That's not the Minnesota you see right now?
Not right now.
Not right now. What Minnesota do you see right now?
Right now, there are a lot of places that are unsafe. And you were talking about it as we opened. Our education system is not serving all of our people well. And in fact, our standards are lowering, and that's going to hurt everybody, regardless of skin color, regardless of zip code. And so in our education system, we need to empower parents. They need to be able to see what the curriculum is, what's going on with their kids without having to fight a bureaucracy. We need money to follow the child so that if your school's not meeting your family's needs, if it's not challenging your kids to be their best, you can take your kids somewhere else that meets the needs of that child. And the third thing is we need to have high standards.
Didn't we try that with No Child Left Behind?
That was a federal program, and it didn't really empower parents. It put in more measurement, more testing, and more bureaucracy, but it didn't say, if kids' needs not being met, what are we going to do about it?
I agree.
So when you mention my ears perked up because as a conservative, I have followed even like Newt Gingrich. He really tried to kind of push the idea of having some type of school voucher system. I know that the left kind of start the hair on fire because they say it's unfair and that schools will be shut down and kids won't be able to go to school. But from a conservative free market perspective, if you feel that your child's school is not providing them with the education that they need, then you can take your child with their tax dollars and move them to a place that they want. So is that something that you would really advocate for as governor?
Yes,
That'd
I
be
think
awesome.
that is a.
I would love to see that because I've heard a lot of people talk about it.
Well, we've tried the voucher system before.
Actually, in Minnesota, we never have. We had something called the Blaine Amendment, and there was a case in Montana. The Supreme Court just ruled that the Blaine Amendment doesn't meet a federal constitutional standard, and so this will be the first time that we've had a chance to try moving money with the child. There are schools that can serve the needs of kids whose needs aren't being met. It's not abandoning the school. They get to keep the base of their property tax, but the state money goes with the child. And those schools that start losing kids, maybe they should work on a better reading program.
Right.
Maybe they should work on listening to parents, meeting the needs of the community instead of meeting the needs of the system. And so money following the child shouldn't fear anybody who wants to be at the top of their game in meeting the needs of Minnesota's kids.
Well.
Well, the people that might be afraid are the administrators and the teachers that are being protected by the union. And I know plenty of teachers in my own family. I know teachers. There's great teachers, and I'm not trying to disparage teachers. I know administrators that are really good at their job, but there's also teachers that suck, and there's administrators that are horrendous.
True.
And so I've always been a proponent of giving, again, people freedom and choice to take risk with their lives, and still providing for a net of a source.
You Republicans love using the word freedom until it's something that you don't like, and then it's like, oh, what freedom?
Freedom means freedom to
right.
do something.
You guys use that word so loosely. Senator Benson,
Sure.
Was what happened to George Floyd, was that murder to you?
Yes.
I love when they flat out, just plain out, it was murder.
You just try and catch everybody on it. This post, buddy.
No, it's a serious question, because to me, and especially to our community, if folks look at it differently, but to most of us, that was murder. And so when I hear people parse it like Dr. Jensen did,
Or me.
or you always do,
When I say technically, yes.
but when I hear that flat out, that warms my heart. That tells me that's what people want to hear. That's what my community wants to hear. Don't sugarcoat it. If it wasn't to you, I guess you could parse like you and Doctor. But I love the way that you say that, and I appreciate that. And then there's no follow up. There's no.
Let's just keep doing
There's
this.
no
You
follow-up.
ask me a question, I answer.
There's no follow up. Damn. There's no follow up.
Podcast Stump Jamar.
Next question. Damn. There's no follow up. Now, again, to me, it's my community is of the utmost importance. And we are experiencing a lot within the pandemic and before the pandemic. A lot of Republicans come into our communities. A lot of time, quite often, it's during a few months or a month or two right before the election cycle. What relationships do you have with black people? Because the two bigger cities are what a governor really needs to win. Rural Minnesota, but if you look at every map that elects a governor, especially a Democrat, but it's usually the two bigger cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and then those little suburbs around. Rural Minnesota comes in for Republicans in a different play. But you guys don't have a relationship with black folks, do you?
I don't want to be fake. So Reverend Christopher and I have talked a number of times. I met Lisa with A Mother's Love. You mentioned rural Minnesota. I grew up in a small town. When I got into the legislature, there are a lot of people from the city who think they know what small towns need and what should happen in rural Minnesota. I'm like, no, you don't get to tell me what to do. So I don't get to come into Minneapolis and say, oh, I understand you. I know how you live and I've got a plan. What I need to do is what I've done in my time at the legislature, try to understand someone's life, try to engage in what they need, listen to their story, and then make decisions that respect the way they live their life. And being inauthentic, pretending that I'm regularly in Minneapolis engaging with these communities isn't fair to them. It doesn't respect them, but it is part of what I need to do in order to serve people across the state.
I told you guys I like Michelle. So who brought her in here? I want to argue, damn it. I want to argue. No, but I love that. That's important to be real. When you first said it, I don't want to be fake. There are so many other Republicans that will parse. Well, I know him, and I've been there. For you to say that that's genuine, because you don't know what you don't know, right?
Exactly.
And so you don't need to make things up. And so I hear you wanting to foster relationships, and that's important to me, is that you want to do that. And like you said, you can't come into Minneapolis saying this is what you need. You need to listen. And too often Republicans and Democrats come telling us, like you said, I got a plan. This is what we'll do. So I love that. You might get a vote.
I wanted to say real quick that myself, I don't live in Minneapolis or St. Paul. I was in Oakdale when I first moved to cities, and then I was in Woodbury, and now I live up in Hugo. I come to Minneapolis a lot. I have two younger brothers that live in Minneapolis, been living here. For me, I talk to folks all the time, especially people in Black communities in regards to people that are in housing, whether that's real estate, mortgage lenders, things like that from my professional career. And the thing that I think that's most important for conservatives and Republicans is to be able to go into the community and show a little bit of vulnerability.
Humility.
Yeah,
way.
absolutely.
In that vulnerability, because I think there's this idea that you're going to get shouted down, and people are going to.
And you might.
And you might.
Yeah.
But you got to take those lumps. And so kind of the question I have for you is, do you want or do you plan on kind of putting an emphasis on trying to turn out more Black voters? Because I personally think there is such a huge opportunity in these communities that if they have someone that they feel is trying to connect, trying to understand, that we can make inroads. We're not going to flip the district or anything crazy like that, but make those inroads. Is that something important to you?
It's important to me that I understand people who've had a different experience than I have in life. There's no reason the Black community should be taken for granted by the Democrats, because the Black community doesn't think uniformly.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah, monolithic group. That's right.
Monolithic.
Well,
So-
we're
I mean,
not-
you guys think that Black Republicans are a monolith.
well, you guys are. Yeah.
But you don't all think alike. And so home ownership, family, good education are things where we can absolutely connect and say, you know what, if you want these things, welcome. I'll listen to you. I'll advocate for you. I'll bring your voice with me to the governor's office. But you need to trust me first. So let's get the trust in place before we start asking for votes.
Because how do you change the disparities? You know, like you said, you know, not being inauthentic and not being in Minneapolis, and so not having those relationships. Okay, so this is a two-parter. How do you change those disparities if you're not there and you don't really know? How do you change the disparities between black and brown people and their white counterparts?
And first of all, you need to acknowledge they exist. And there are a lot of people on the left, I'm going to say it, don't acknowledge that it's a system problem. So what you do is listen to the moms and dads who are frustrated with the way their kids' school functions and give them a choice of where they go to school. There are examples of charter schools that have been really successful in lifting up people who were left behind in a public school, regular public school. There are private schools who are meeting the needs of the Black community. And frankly, all Black and brown people are finding homes in Catholic schools, in private schools, not Blake and Breck, but JP2 in Columbia Heights has majority students that don't speak English as their first language. And those families are finding a home and their kids are succeeding. And that should be the focus. That's how you close disparities. And you know what? A focus on literacy is huge. If you read by third grade or by the end of third grade, learning becomes easier the rest of your life. But if you can't read when you leave third grade, how do you learn history in fourth grade? How do you become an independent learner when you can read? And so, yes, we can do school choice, but we also need to raise standards and implement a curriculum that says, we're going to measure if you're getting your kids to learn how to read. Not my job to tell you what curriculum to use. My job to say, are your kids reading by the end of third grade? Are they going to fourth grade reading at grade level? And if you are, then you're succeeding.
That's absolutely right. So, okay, right now, do you have a big staff? You're running for governor. Do you have a big staff right now?
It's small.
It's small.
You have to raise money to hire people, and we're working on
True
both.
enough. True
Yeah.
enough. Okay, so when your staff gets bigger, and if you're elected governor, will you have a reflective staff that looks like the state? I mean, will there be Black, gay, straight, female in your administration?
We'll hire for talent, but they have to have voices from all over the state. So I don't.
But too often, even the governor was, which I thought we had a talk with this guy, and he promised not to hire all suits because everyone that's qualified doesn't have those
look
degrees.
Nice in a suit.
Well,
I'm
I'm very clean. You're absolutely right.
Exactly.
Oh, I clean up very well. You're absolutely right. So I should say that wrong. Better. Everyone, all those folks with those degrees, right? I think sometimes you have to have experienced people
Yeah.
in the administration. Is that something that you do too? Would do too? Not just folks with the degrees, but even if they don't have a degree in this, but they have the experience in that. Is that would you bring in Jamar that has experience in diversity inclusion, but I may not have a degree in that? Would you qualify me for a position?
I would rather have somebody who had ideas than wrote a white paper, somebody who had experience, who had executed a solution or worked a plan, than somebody who wrote their PhD thesis. Because there's something about actually doing it that makes it more sustainable, viable, better for Minnesota, I think.
You know, there's something that is always interesting when I hear this from other conservatives, and it's something that always I wonder if Jamar thinks the same way. Hiring for talent, in my opinion, means that you give everybody an equal opportunity.
Absolutely.
Right? And it means that you're going to pick what is best, versus what I think happens on the left is that you want to fulfill a good pat on the back and say, hey, look at all these black people, look at all these people we have. But when you don't hire for talent and instead you put people in positions to fail, they will fail. And then it will actually reinforce to people that wanted to give people a chance. This is why I don't give people chances. So I personally think it works the opposite way. What really matters is, are you willing to give people an opportunity to show you that they have talent and find the people that have the best talent? So whether you're hiring X, Y, or Z job, you always need a hire for that. So I just want to throw my two pieces.
Well,
that's what I hear when I hear hire for talent.
For me, hiring is attitude and aptitude. Do you want to get stuff done? And do you have a broad skill set? You don't need to have a bunch of letters behind your name. Attitude and aptitude matter.
You don't need to have a bunch of damn letters behind your name.
Hey man,
are there any questions? Questions and comments? You guys make sure you get questions and comments for Senator Benson.
We definitely got
candidate for governor.
Rachel Williams, who is a listener. She always has really
that's our girl.
Hilarious comments. She said, praying Michelle Benson stops mandatory vaccines before they even start, especially for our children. I'm not anti-vax. I am for freedom of choice. The elderly were devastated. Most would have rather risked it and been able to see loved ones face to face in their end of life. Instead of that, some folks suffered alone. I'm a CNA. It's the saddest thing I've ever witnessed before.
First of all, Rachel, as a CNA, thank you for being on the front lines of this war against an enemy we couldn't see.
Yeah.
And you can't throw a punch at a virus, and so that makes it more frightening, I think, for a lot of people. The Biden vaccine mandates are not something we can stop at the state level, but I have always been about informed consent. And Minnesota has in place some pretty good protections for our students and in higher ed when the Department of Health says vaccines should be in place. What we're missing is a broader set of protections. Nursing homes need to be able to stop infection, but we also need to balance that with the right of an individual to say, this is my body, in particular, if you have a medical condition, if you already have immunity to the disease, or if you have closely held rights of conscience. There are people, and you have more instinct on this than I do. But when we're starting to talk about vaccine mandates, talk to a couple of African American men, black men. Please always correct me if
I love when folks say black men. African American is like, oh.
Okay.
Some people say black is better, and then other people are like, African American. I'm not from Africa. And then you have Dr. Umar Johnson that says that all black people are African.
Well, and so like Father Peter is actually African. He came from Africa. So I always correct me. I'd rather be corrected than say the wrong thing. But they remember Tuskegee. It wasn't that long ago. And so, let's respect the fact that there are some people with vaccine hesitancy.
Absolutely. There's mistrust of government, but Senator Benson, isn't that... I scoff at the way you guys criticize the governor as if he didn't have the best interests of the people in mind. To me, you guys broke it down in such a partisan lens, right? But when I think as governor myself, I too would have the word mandate everyone hates. We always laugh and say the word requirement maybe should be used as more softer, but it doesn't really give you a choice. But maybe using the word require, would have been better. But I mean, how do we begrudge even Governor Benson, who you say now what you would have done differently? But if you got caught up right away, like he did, or most governors did in this state, or in the country,
yeah.
Isn't it easy to sit here and say what I would have done differently versus being in that governor's seat, getting hit from, everywhere?
And I was in a lot of this conversation and have been pretty consistent about you judge based on the way the virus moves. The vaccine rollout was flawed in a number of ways. There were testing contracts that were not vetted to Minnesota companies. I've been pretty clear about that. Vaccines work and they are important, but we also need to trust people. We need to educate them. And what I've seen is the more we threaten people and the more we name call,
pull back,
the less people want to listen and believe you have their best interests at heart. And
but isn't that what you guys did, though? Isn't that what Republicans did? You guys did a lot of discouraging by name calling the governor, name calling what he did.
But
when it was when
Who has
he
the power,
when he gave when
but who has the power? So I see it.
the
this
people
way,
have the power.
that-
The governor was just saying,
No,
look,
when-
if
when
you guys are going to
institutions-
bring your sick behinds in these
when
businesses
the
that are
institutions
infecting them,
of power start making rules and mandates, I think that people pull back. People recoil. There's people that say
Republicans pull back.
No, I'm saying averaged every day on the street people. Why 29% of Black Americans, as of 3 weeks ago,
because they don't trust government.
But that's what I'm saying.
And-
But
and-
they trust it even less when the government's saying, now you have to do that. Then they're like, what do you mean I have
they're
to?
threatening you and saying you can't go here and you can't do this. And so I think
Do you believe in the vaccine? Do you think that it works? Are you vaccinated?
It's not a matter of faith or belief. Vaccines work.
Are you vaccinated, Senator Benson?
I have immunity. I went to my doctor and said, okay, so what shot do I get?
Talk
And
to the doctor.
He tested me. Like my husband got vaccinated. My sons got vaccinated.
Okay.
So they work. You need to have immunity, and I'm going to get a booster here shortly
Okay,
because I want to make
I've had
sure.
the booster already. Get your
And
booster.
you're
immune now.
And you talk to your doctor. Like that to me.
No one's saying that you shouldn't talk to your doctor.
But people are saying don't talk to. People are saying
Who?
roll through and pull up your sleeve and just go ahead and get that shot. That's what people are saying. And
Yeah, they're saying it, but they don't
my
mean it
biggest-
like that. No one's
here's
saying
been my
X your
biggest
doctor
beef. My
out of
biggest
it.
beef is that when we, and again, this goes back to this original premise that I think that if people are armed with knowledge, they will make good decisions. And the problem is that if you say your knowledge doesn't matter, I remember I read this post and basically this leftist who is very very prominent blue check mark Twitter said, do your own research is a stupid idea. And that to me was like, what do you mean that's a stupid idea? Like everybody does their own research on everything that they live their life. And we don't, the average life expectancy isn't 14 years old. People do their own research all the time. But I think that it's important that when you are in a government capacity, it's about how can we get information to people so they hopefully can make the right decision and encourage them instead of the opposite way. So I want to read just a couple of things here too, a couple other folks.
And
Go
if
ahead.
I
I'll let
could,
you finish your point.
If this hadn't happened in the middle of a really contentious election, all of this would have felt different.
Yes.
There wouldn't have been
Absolutely.
pull back here, push there, name call, you're this, you're that, you don't care if people die, you don't care about my freedom. We put everybody into these boxes, and if you weren't in a box, then we don't want to hear from you.
Word.
And so this early on, like March of 2020, I listened to some crisis communication experts, brought them in. We need to speak with confidence, not certainty. And what the administration on both the state and federal level did was, this is gospel. Mm-hmm. And if you don't follow it, you're wrong. And then the media picked up on that and said, oh, this is gospel. Instead of saying, this is what we know now, it will probably change because this is a novel virus. Mm-hmm. This is the first time we've had this experience. So let's tell you what we know now and understand that it might change. And I think that would have been a different conversation.
People would have been on board.
The slimy sucker in New York, the former governor, Cuomo, he did do that, but he was criticized for that because people
He put sick people.
No,
in nursing
look
homes,
what he
so.
did. I said slimy sucker. Okay,
Yeah.
but I mean, no, honestly, I think he kind of set the tone of what governors should do because he was very fluid with the way the pandemic was, and he would say that, like, you know what, I'm gonna say this now, but in 2 weeks it's gonna change. So will I. But he got criticized so much. But I think what you said was so poignant that if it wasn't a contested political season, things would be different. Things would have been said differently. And you're right. Honestly, I thought about that, but I didn't think about that being so contested that does change the way people feel because they want to get their point across.
I'm going to throw some other comments. So one of our commenters, Jacqueline, said, "What do you think would be a priority of yours for the initial steps to make Minneapolis safe?" So obviously, right now, increased crime, violence, everything like that. And I'll kind of add that from Jacqueline's comment. Thank you, Jacqueline. If vote no. If the amendment passes and no is defeated, is there anything that when you get into office that you would try and change, or is it one of these things where technically you can't do anything?
No, because if it passes, doesn't Governor Walz, doesn't he on the state level have to do something if it does pass?
Cities have to be safe, and so working with the sheriff in Hennepin County, making sure that there is some protection for individuals. I don't know what the plan is, and this is
There is
none. Like step one, remove the police. Step two,
remove the police chief.
what's step two? So whenever somebody says step one is essential and you must do it, ask them what step two is. And so governors aren't supposed to manage cities. So Minneapolis needs police. And yes, reform is important. Good police officers who show up for work every day want to be around good police officers who show up for work every day because that's their mission. That was their calling. That's how they want to serve. But the governor, so when it comes to more public safety, bully pulpit with prosecutors, work with the legislature for enhanced penalties for gun crimes, for example. Appoint judges who don't deviate down on sentencing over and over and over again.
Especially because I just talked to, again, one inspector today who said that the juvenile rate of gun crimes, carjacking, is, again, off the chains. But they arrest them tonight and they're out tomorrow. And I'm a father of juveniles, but damn it, you got to treat them like adults. If they're doing adult crimes, and then a lot of them get away, we were saying, because they don't have the mental capacity.
Well, also gangs understand this, and they say,
They
we know
recruit
this
these
dude's
dudes.
gonna
Yeah.
get out,
Yeah.
and he's gonna be back on the street because this stupid DA, or whatever, this county prosecutor is gonna cut them loose.
Well, and how's the judge and the prosecutor helping the parent that wants to get their kids out of the gang by saying, "Oh, you know what you did, we're just going to let you go"? How about the judge and the prosecutor have the back of the mom and the dad who are trying to get their kids on the straight and narrow, who don't want to see their kids going down this terrible path that's going to end badly? You're going to end up in hospital, in prison, or the morgue.
All of the above.
Yeah.
There was another question here that was asked directly to you, Michelle. Just asking
Senator Benson.
Hey, we're casual here. Come on.
Gotcha.
What about the communities who have been brainwashed to believe the things that they want are actually to the detriment of the community? Example, defunding the police, critical race theory in schools. Is there anything as governor that you would take a position on in regards to cities defunding? And you kind of already answered this, that, cities do what they do. But what about, critical race theory? Is there anything that you've kind of heard of?
For example, LGA, you can tie that to some level of public
Local government
safety.
aid, right?
Local government aid. Sorry,
yeah.
Thank you.
She's a man of government.
I'm a every man that knows some politics. So
And so you can say, your priority needs to be police, fire, clean water, and basic infrastructure. You don't get to use it to rebuild the Nicollet Mall again. So you can tie some of that funding to basic government services. what was the follow? Oh, and critical race theory.
Yeah.
Critical race theory has no place in our schools.
Well, wait a minute now. You just said that you wouldn't tell schools what curriculum they should use. Now you sound like contradicting yourself now.
No, there are benchmarks that the state sets that you measure against, and the Department of Education sets those benchmarks. They're updated every 10 years.
They suck, though, Senator Benson.
But and so let's focus on core education, but there's no reason that a Benson Department of Education would say critical race theory is going to be built into our
Good.
benchmark
Thank
curriculum.
God. Thank God.
We got you here for like 5 more minutes.
And I
Go
also
ahead,
want
go
to get
ahead,
to
go ahead.
another. So Lisa.
And
says-
Kojam?
I don't
Oh, so you don't remember that. You're too young for that. Yeah.
says Trump in March 2020 shut the entire world down due to pressure and incompetency. Trump gives each state control over opening up April 2020. By late April, early April, all the 2020 Trump blames Democratic governors. So basically saying,
Which is true.
basically saying, that Trump shut it down and then said it's all the state's responsibility. Personally, I believe that Trump didn't shut anything down. He shut down travel to from countries to country,
Right.
but he never specifically said this state has to do this state has to do this. And then he did say these governors are making stupid decisions, but you can hold someone accountable. But that's because Republicans generally believe states have their own sovereignty to do certain things. Every state has a Department of Health, right? And so every state has their own standards. There's federal umbrellas, but that's just my point. Do you have
Okay,
a comment?
so-
to that? Yeah.
It's not Republicans believe. Our Constitution says.
Yeah.
So we didn't just you know what?
True.
Let's sit around the fire pit and discuss states' rights.
Yeah.
It was built into our federalist system. States are responsible for public health response because states have different needs and different ways of responding. We talk about CDC guidance. We talk about guidance from the National Institutes of Health, because it's their job to help our local departments of help our state departments of health and local public health to be informed as to what the science is. But that doesn't mean the federal government gets to say, this is how you do things. They can send money to support a type of public health response, but states have autonomy. And that's why we saw states doing different things. Did everybody get it right all the time? No. Cuomo putting people into nursing homes was a bad idea.
Terrible.
But he was early on in his hospitals being overwhelmed, so he's going to have a different response than Wyoming, who didn't have overwhelmed hospitals until very late. So somebody in Washington, D.C. saying, you know what? We're going to have a one-size-fits-all solution that's going to solve California's problem and New York's problem and Arkansas's problem and North Dakota's problem, and I'm going to make all the decisions, is not the way our country is supposed to work. And it wouldn't have been effective in a pandemic response. So we needed PPE.
Time goes so fast.
We needed support for our hospitals, and we needed non-controversial, clear guidance from our federal
We didn't get
public
from the
health
previous
partners.
guy either. But at any rate, I got two quick questions for you. You guys' party, this is something serious. You guys' party has undergone like real change.
Yeah.
So within that, there's a lot of you guys running, and to me, you're the best one that's running so far.
I'm going to put you on an endorsement.
You should, you should. I don't care. I will. Number one, how does people, not just black folks, but how does the people of Minnesota trust your party again with everything that you guys have undergone? And then if you guys are operating from a strength of weakness, which basically you are, especially with David Hahn, somebody, how do you...
Great guy.
How does a governor, how do you expect to win out of that when to me, you operating from a strength of weakness?
A place of weakness, yeah.
I'm sorry, thank you. I
Yeah,
said
a
strength.
place of
did not-
weakness.
yes, thank you.
If your strength is your
That's true.
weakness, then you're in
place
good
of
shape.
weakness. Thank you. That's true.
It's all good.
I like this guy. So how do you propose to get out of that box? Your party doesn't seem very strong right now, and especially with black folks.
And Senator Hand served with me in the Senate, and he architected the election that got us to the majority in 2017. So he knows what a statewide election looks like. Raising money is going to be one of his key responsibilities to make sure we have staff and talent to help with that boots on the ground turnout, getting voters to the door. We're going to do a lot of election integrity. That matters a lot to activist Republicans.
The other ones that voted for Trump that couldn't find any irregularities. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
And that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, we'll have you back on that one.
That's going to be part of what the party has to do going forward to make sure people trust the outcome of the election. So we need good ground game. We need trusted outcomes for the election, but we're going to have to be really specific about reaching out to people who have not been traditionally Republican. Because if you work hard, if you want to own a home, if you want to build a business, if you care about educational outcomes, not educational systems, you should feel at home in the Republican Party. But we're going to have to be really specific about not putting up walls and doing outreach, listening instead of lecturing.
So where can people go find you to help you, donate, volunteer, all of that? Where can they go?
Michelle, the number 4, mn.com, or Michelle Benson from Minnesota on Facebook, and at Senator Benson on Twitter.
Again, I happen to really like Michelle, and I wish you the best of luck. I think that so far you are hearing you. You're saying the right things. I do implore you to get into the communities of North and South Minneapolis and to Black and Brown situations. Again, no matter if you yelled at or not, you got the right people that you're talking to. I'm sure they'll be willing to take you in there. Even I would absolutely be willing to take you into Black communities to let folks hear your message. Because I say all the time, right, how tired Black and Brown folks are of Democrats. But it's like a cousin that you can't stand. Well, I'd rather go to the bar with him than somebody that I don't know.
It's a random person.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I would be happy to take up the opportunity to first sit and listen, and then
I love that you say that.
But first listen and then share what your vision is so that you can see what you have in common. Because that's how you trust people. You can't ask people to vote for you if they can't trust you.
I mean, that's not it's not a novel ideal, right?
It's a crazy
but
idea.
Folks just in your party, and politicians, period, but especially in your party, they just don't use it. They'll look at the Black communities and say, "Oh, they're Democrats." Well, they might be, but if you ask them what's going on, what ails them, they'll say such and such, and then you find commonality. They're like, well, damn, you're a Republican?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
And I'll let you, yeah.
You can be a Democrat and vote for Republicans. You just have to.
That's a curse, though.
It's a curse.
You're not going to have a podcast if it's Black Republican.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you got to hang.
No, absolutely.
I wanted to say, Michelle, it was nice to meet you. You've probably seen.
You've never met Michelle before?
Like I don't think we've ever
We've probably been in the same place.
Absolutely,
place,
yeah.
I don't think we've ever had a conversation.
Really?
Like, I was at State Senator. I was Deputy Sergeant Armin, and I heard a lot of good things. So my really good buddy Bobby Benson, he says, yeah, Michelle is awesome. She's a rock star. And I was like, yeah, it'd be great to be able to meet you. I've actually talked to some other people running for governor, and some of them said, will you support me? And I said, I have to talk to everybody. And I was like, Michelle's going to be on our show, so I'll have a chance to talk to her. Yeah. So I appreciate you coming on the show, being candid. It was awesome to speak with you. Definitely want to have you back on because we still got time.
Yes, we got a lot of time for your election. And this is Michelle. Seriously, everybody. This is Senator Benson. This is what you see right now on our table. It's what you get. This is real Senator Benson. We've been in bars and had a couple of and still this is who she is. So I respect that. I appreciate that. And again, my door is wide open to get you into these communities, to lend your voice, let's find some commonality, because we've lost that long time ago. We we refuse to see commonality in politics, and that hurts everybody. That affects everyone when we're battling this Republican or battling this Democrat. Right. When you have a good ideal, if it works, let's use
solutions,
it, right?
Baby, solutions.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And I just want to plug one last time, if you're watching and you think this hat is legit, my hat, Jamar's hat, please visit our Patreon, patreon.com/BRBD. If you like the show, please share it on your Facebook, on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, go and subscribe to it. It's the only way for this show to grow. We appreciate you watching. I'm A.K. Kamara.
I'm just Jamar. And if you're smart and you're Republican, you go out and vote Michelle Benson. Thanks for coming on tonight. That's your best choice. That Dr. Jensen guy, I liked him, but I trust Michelle. I trust Michelle.
And I'm still making decisions.
Okay, well, I'm helping you. I'll help you. I'll talk to you after the show. Join us next week, guys. Appreciate you.
Peace.